foreign policy is concerned, there are a lot of issues which were raised. This was actually tabled by one of the senator of PMLN, Javed Abbasi, and was actually supported by a lot of other senators from various other parties. There were concerns regarding the visit of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Saudi Arabia, to Iran, to Qatar. Now he's in USA and will be flying to Mexico today as well. So it seems as if Pakistan has been encircled. Now, it is their foreign policy which is achieving their targets, or is it something wrong on our part? Now, this is going to be the topic of our discussion today in our program. Where did we go wrong? If we admit that there is something wrong, though the problem is that we do not. Concern has also been shown by the Chief of Army Staff when he had a very important meeting with Ishaq Dar Saab, as well as the Defence Secretary Khwaja, Defence Minister Khwaja Asif Saab yesterday. The DG ISI was there as well, along with the Secretary of Foreign Office, as well as Mr. Sartaj Aziz, and also was accompanied by Mr. Fatmi. And now, especially the issue regarding that drone strike in which Mullah Akhtar Mansoor was killed also came under discussion, though they believe that this was against the sovereignty of Pakistan. But what sovereignty are we talking about? That is again a big, huge question mark. What about the future of Afghanistan? Because a lot of circles do believe that the Americans as well as the Indians, they want to keep Afghanistan in the similar state for another couple of years so that Pakistan doesn't progress, or this area of Cpec gets disturbed in one way or the other. Obviously, people like Gulshan Yadav, they've been caught, who were directly involved in all the wrongdoings in Pakistan, especially in spreading terrorism, and they were all involved in terrorist activities, whether you talk about Karachi or FATA or elsewhere. Now, these are the key areas which we'll be discussing in our program. We have with us to talk about this on my right is Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi Saab. He's a very senior analyst, also runs a think tank. So thank you very much for taking out your time and being a part of our show. We have with us Professor Aqab Malik Saab, is a professor at NDU. So thank you very much for taking out your time. And in a little while, we'll be joined in by Lieutenant General retired Amjad Shoaib Saab, a known defense analyst. Sarwar Naqvi Saab, since you've also served in USA and various other countries, when we talk about foreign diplomacy or the foreign policy of Pakistan, now, sir, we used to raise this issue at various platforms, especially in my own program. I used to always talk about it. But now certain senators from the governing and the ruling parties, they've also raised this concern. The concern is not that Pakistan is not doing what they are supposed to do, but India is actually kind of encircling them, whether he goes to Saudi Arabia, gets the highest civil award, he goes to Qatar, and the trade which used to hover around $300 million about 9-10 years ago, they have taken it up to $15 billion, though the $14 billion are import, but when you talk about LNG import, that's where Qatar is number one. You talk about Iran, look at the recent agreement they have signed. You talk about the Indian-US relationship. That is practically at its prime at the moment, sir. And the recent visit is also going to set certain more standards. When it comes to Pakistan, sir, I mean, and obviously you can't forget the role of India and Afghanistan, fourth largest in terms of investment out there, but the kind of role they have played. And yes, sir, if you ask me this question, I'll say Pakistan has been encircled, sir. Your take, let's start off from there.
Well, it certainly looks like it, doesn't it? You see, the key, to me, the key point in this regard is economics. You know, the reason why India is riding high and is being quoted by all these countries and is getting very special treatment is because the Indian economy is doing well and there are possibilities of good business. You see, this is a globalized world. If your economy is doing well, you can reach out to the rest of the world. So it is basically that. I mean, I am not one of those who thinks that because Modi has been to Saudi Arabia or to Iran or to UAE or to Qatar. I was in fact yesterday in Qatar when Modi came. I was passing through and I had to spend about 7-8 hours in Doha because I was coming from Singapore from the Shangri-La.
You had a connecting flight?
Yeah, and there was a connecting flight, Shangri-La Dialogue, which was again a very big gathering. Now, in Qatar he had a great welcome, and he went and had a meal with the Indian workers in their canteen, and he befriended them. This picture was right on top of all the newspapers, the Qatar Tribune and the Gulf Times and all that. Anyway, the point is that everywhere he is creating a great effect locally. But I don't think, as I started out by saying, that this will completely change the dynamics of the bilateral relationships with different countries. Pakistan has its own position, and Pakistan has its standing with with all these countries in the Middle East and Iran. You know, even in my time when I used to be serving abroad, India was very well regarded by the Arab countries, but that did not mean that Pakistan was ignored. Pakistan has
That's
its
a two
own
neighboring
place.
countries, sir. Look at the. If you allow me, sir. Please, you can.
Pakistan has its own place. I'll just finish. And Pakistan maintains good relations with all these countries. I don't think that will be changed. They will not opt for India. It's not a zero-sum game, as they say. The relationship with Pakistan will stay where it is, but India is making headway, especially in the economic field.
So that is where the main issue is for Pakistan. Yeah. Dr. Kab, if I put the question to you, Jalal Sahab, thank you very much for taking out your time, sir, and joining us. Dr. Sahab, now, when it comes to Pakistan-Iran relationship, look at the history where we were. I mean, the first head of state to visit Pakistan and to recognize Pakistan was Iran, and Shah Iran came here. Till the time of Khatami, they used to always support Kashmir cause and wait on. You know, look at the engagement with which Iran had with Pakistan. They bought 90 jets during the war from Germany and gave it to Pakistan. That is not, nobody does that for anybody. Pakistan and Afghanistan, we always thought we are brotherly countries, and that was kind of a strategic debt, so-called. Now look at the current relationship between these two countries and Pakistan, and also what India has done recently. I mean, how do you see this equation? Can't you see Pakistan has been encircled, sir?
I can't. I wouldn't see it that way. I wouldn't see it as Pakistan specifically being encircled. I would see it as India feeling left out from the Cpec. That we're going to benefit massively from Cpec, and we're going to grow from that. Now, maybe that riles.
But if you look at from the Indian prism, sir, I mean, they have done the damage. I mean, look at the kind of investment they're making in Chabad.
But
bypass Pakistan.
My point is, they feel left out. They feel strategically misaligned to an extent because China is taking an initiative which they didn't, and they didn't think. You've got to understand the larger picture here and the containment of China. I mean, people don't talk about it, they don't admit to it, but there is a certain emphasis on the containment of China in South China Sea, for example, and the larger picture of power transfer between the existing superpower and a future power, great power that's coming up. And there's a potential for that, and I don't think the United States wants that to occur. So it is in their interest to make sure that they maintain dominance as much as possible. That may also mean that they have to reduce the rate of increase or expansion or betterment of China as much as they can to delay that progress. And this is one of the things that we're feeling the backlash on, because we've found Indian spies, Afghani spies, 6 Afghani spies lately as well, yes, who are fundamentally trying to upset our balance and upset our progress towards Cpec. But you've got to look at it, I look at it in a different way without the emotions attached, and I look at it as in a strategic manner, and I realize that this is in their interest. And it's a game of cat and mouse, and it always has been. And if we raise a who and how and loud noises, which is part of the process to indicate that we're not the world thinks we're the baddie, but actually we're not doing that. We're trying to increase and change realities on the ground. We change our understanding. We're trying to de-emphasize the militancy. We're trying to reject that and reject terrorism, and we want to move forward and progress as a society, as part of the global community, and increase our capacity.
We are maybe trying to do that, but the whole world.
But the problem, not the whole world.
When they listen to the media,
but that's the thing.
The US or the Western world,
this is the biggest problem.
It's a different ballgame altogether.
But we've got a big problem here. The big problem is that we're not good at that. The whole world has changed towards media emphasis, information dissemination. And the idea is that you've got to project a positive image in every aspect possible, and we've been very deficient in that. I was in the States a few years ago as a senior fellow at Johns Hopkins, And I went to 50 plus conferences, workshops, discussions, where I was the only Pakistani who was raising a point, and there were multiple Indians at every point, and multiple Indians everywhere in every think tank. Yet I was the only one around. And I'd raised a point in every one, but the point of the matter is you can't rely on one person. We're not putting the emphasis on the information sphere, on the psychological aspect of influencing the mindset of other people. Now you've got lots of movies coming out of Bollywood and Hollywood especially, which are executive producers are Indian, but the directors are Indian, the actors are Indians, portraying a very positive India. And that's going to feed into the mindset of the Western population.
There's so many seasons.
And that's part of them because they exist in that secular pattern, but we're not part of that.
All right.
So we are put into the sidelines because we're not putting the emphasis in.
It's our fault, right?
Primarily because we're not putting the emphasis in.
Yeah. Whether you talk about sports, whether you talk about any other activity, any institution.
And look at the gains. They may be not physically tangible
Qatar
gains.
is ready to invest in Indigo, that Indian airline.
Yep.
And we look at what happened to
Who's
PIA
gonna
2 days
invest in
ago.
us?
2 flights were
But
delayed for 6 hours.
But you've got to look
despite
at
the
the
fact that a
impressions.
couple of very senior
But look at the
politicians were there as well.
impressions.
This is the
Look at
difference.
the
If you allow me, sir. Jalsa, from the defense point of view, now the Americans and the Indians, they have a very strong strategic partnership, and we have also heard that most probably there's going to be a contract signed where the Indians could use the American bases, the Americans would be using the Indian bases, though we do believe that the Indian Ocean should remain non-nuclear. But in the future it seems that it is all about the blue waters of the Indian Ocean. The Americans' presence will be there, the Indian presence is going to be there, the Chinese, they want to establish their own footprint there as well. How do you see this equation, sir, and how it is going to affect Pakistan?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Right from 9/11 onward, I think the American policy, perhaps they had at that time reoriented themselves towards containment of China. And you could see that on one hand they have been getting all sorts of assistance from Pakistan to put a foothold in Afghanistan. But they have been somehow trying to please the Indians, trying to take care of their interests and at the cost of Pakistan's security concerns.
Correct.
I think that has been our dilemma, and our people, I think, totally fail to understand the complete or to the end game in this region, and Americans perhaps.
Jalsa, when you say our people, what exactly do you mean by that? Our politicians, our
I
decision
think
makers?
decision makers in
or
defense
or
and
the bureaucracy, who?
in foreign policy, in foreign office, both. Now the point is that on one hand, America has invested a lot in India, and also, I mean, the concessions, the kind of concessions they have given to them in the nuclear field and in military field and in technology transfer. Similarly, they have tried to bring these three countries together, Japan, India and Australia, which they call the pivot to Asia. This is the now future strategy which they are going to promote and going to hold on, and that is where I think they have been looking for bases in Indian Ocean to, which they are now talking about, that we are going to sign an agreement where United States will be able to utilize some of the Indian bases where they feel that they can put their stock their weapons, stock their ammunition, or else they can refuel their ships and refuel their aircraft, etc. Now, this development primarily has a relevance to China, where they want to deny the freedom of shipping to China from South China Sea through Malacca Straits to Indian
All the way
Ocean
to Gulf and
and up to the Gulf, and perhaps an access to Africa also, because China has many investment in Africa too. Now they don't want to allow that freedom of shipping to China, so they will keep their shipping threatened. At any time they will be in a position to initiate any action if they feel that the Chinese are not coming around to whatever they want them to do. On the other hand, Pakistan has facilitated China by giving an access to Indian Ocean through the land route. And this is where the Cpec is seen as something which is totally will work as a counter to whatever India, America and everybody has been building up till today. And that is where they won't like this project to be completed, so that their own design stays wherever it is, and they should be able to contain China the way they want it to be done. Now link it with the State of the Union speech which Obama had delivered some 3 to 4 months ago, in which he said that Afghanistan and Pakistan, this region is going to be unstable for another 10 years, decade or so.
That's what he said, yes.
And people laughed at, they said that Obama is not looking at the ground realities. No, it was a message. It didn't have anything to do with the ground realities from our point of view. It had a linkage
From
with
their point of view.
Now, if they have to keep this region destabilized, because you should not be in a position to complete your project or economic corridor, that serves their purpose. So that is where they have never objected to what the Afghan intelligence or Indian intelligence did to sabotage the negotiations which you are holding with the Taliban. Those were twice they were sabotaged. Twice, many times they
Never went after Mullah Fazlullah or
and now
the other supporters.
that they will never object, because that is one of the cards with them, with the American approval with the Indians, to destabilize the whole thing here. And now again they have sabotaged. On 18th of May they held a meeting, 4 countries joining together and declaring that talks are the only way to move forward as far as the peace in Pakistan is concerned, QCG. And they also said that all the 4 countries will utilize their influence to bring the Taliban onto the negotiations table. And you see 3 days later they put a drone on Mullah Mansoor Akhtar, and the whole thing is over 6. And the excuse is taken that Mullah Akhtar was a big hurdle in negotiations, as if the Taliban had assured Obama Saab that if you remove Mullah Akhtar, then we'll come onto the negotiation table.
They have hardliners in their ranks.
So Taliban, if you know their mentality,
if
you know their mentality,
and
if you know the Taliban or Afghan mentality, first of all, they would like to take revenge.
Yes.
You have eliminated their leader, and that is how they operate. And revenge is on. Now they are killing people here and there in courts and wherever they can go. So we are now much away from seeing any peace or stability in Afghanistan.
That's what everybody says.
That is what the Americans have done intentionally. Now they have now gone into Balochistan, where you have this strategic corridor mainly going to Gwadar and this whole area. Now this is being threatened because once we protested against this drone attack, Obama said that we will go after all those people who are against us, and wherever they are, we'll hit them. It means that they are going to stick to Balochistan, that they have made up their mind. Now these are the changes which are taking place. Iran will be coming closer to United States. India is acting as a bridge between the 2 countries, and maybe many things you don't see that Iran is perhaps doing, but without the direct American intervention, because the messages will pass through the Indians to the Iranians, and that will have a sort of problem in a way that your Cpec project will have certain difficulties. Now their interest is that maybe they send a delegation or some high-power people from United States, they visit Pakistan also, and first of all they'll warn you and try to dissuade you from going ahead with your Cpec project, and if you don't do that, then they will create difficulties. And in that they will receive tacit approval and tacit help from Iranians also, and India in any case
is going to support that idea.
India will support to the
maximum level.
Maximum level, and the reason is that Indians, after all, whatever they have been doing,
we would have done the same.
Whatever they have been doing,
but they have played their cards very smartly.
No, Faisal, whatever they have been doing to you from Afghan soil, the main purpose was that they want to cripple you economically, destabilize Pakistan, and do not allow the economy to grow.
And
if you have the Cpec,
I mean, there was this budget.
How can they reconcile with Cpec, which perhaps shows you some light at the end of the tunnel? That ultimately
that makes absolute sense.
So that will never happen. So the American policies in the region are changing. The Iranian policies are changing. We have already given a lot of space where India has moved into Saudi Arabia, Gulf states, Iran. We had done a favor to Iran by not going into Yemen We never capitalized on that. We never tried to.
But still you became a part
And
with the Saudis. I mean, they didn't like it.
we earned the annoyance from Saudis.
Now,
and-
Jalal Sahib, if you allow me, sir, let me put this question to Sarwar Sahib. Sarwar Sahib, since you run a think tank and you have served in this field for such a long time, and historically you exactly know the kind of relationship which we had with Iran, sir, like the real brothers, you know, the kind of support, very genuine support from them. Now it's the other way around, sir, unfortunately. Post whatever happened in Afghanistan when the Taliban were in power, they killed Iranian diplomats, they killed a lot of Shias also, and then on daily basis Hazaras are being killed. Now it has stopped to a significant level, but earlier you remember when
It was very bad at one time.
yeah. Now, sir, this entire equation, I mean, has basically put these two countries, you know, I won't say they're like frontal to each other, but they're not having that kind of a relationship they used to enjoy years back, decades back, I would say. The current Pakistan-Iran understanding and the visit of Mr. Rouhani to Pakistan and that issue of Gulbashan Yadev, you know, don't you think that has actually sabotaged the entire visit?
Yes.
Because I had a word with Sherry Rehman the other day,
Yeah.
on Monday, and she agreed to it. She said we did whatever we could have done to engage Iran with Pakistan in our tenure, especially former President Zardari made a lot of effort.
Yes.
But the current government is too inclined towards Saudi Arabia. Your take, sir.
Well, I mean, it's not so clear cut because it is this government which took that position of neutrality on the advice of the parliament. So we have maintained, you see, our dilemma is to maintain a kind of balance between Saudi Arabia and Iran, basically. Saudi Arabia and all its other allies in the Gulf Cooperation Council, and Iran perhaps with Syria and with Iraq government now, they have the Shia bloc as such. This is very divisive for the Muslims. In the first place, there should not be a Shia Sunni bloc, but we have to balance between the two. A, we do not participate or take any sides in the intra-Muslim disputes, because once you get involved on one side, then the other side is hostile to you. So, and even for our own domestic reasons, you see, Pakistan is a country which is a multi-sect society. It's not an unisect society.
It is not, yes.
So we have to be mindful of the domestic repercussions. So with Iran, it's all very complicated. Yes, I agree with you that the Rouhani visit should have been handled much better. I mean, we tend to act with a knee-jerk reaction. If you catch a spy, okay, that's bad. The spy had come from Iran, okay, that's very bad, because that means that Iran has not been playing fair with you. But you know, such matters are not the substance of discussion
At that kind of a
at the highest level. I mean, the president of Iran, you should have engaged him. They are coming out of the sanctions. You should have engaged him in matters of
Investment
economic cooperation,
Yeah.
investment opportunities,
Yes.
other opening of other fields, even in education, in science and technology, culture, because we have many common
Despite the
things.
sanctions, sir, Iran is such a brilliant country.
Yes.
Look at the
culture-
infrastructure and otherwise, I mean, education.
You see, culture after Arabic, the
Health facilities, for
biggest influence on Urdu is Persian, and the Persian tradition in our language is one of the principal features.
But that's not what we are doing. No? That's what Narendra Modi is doing with
That's
Rouhani.
what, though he doesn't have this advantage.
He was
that-
sitting with him and telling him
that-
some Ghalib's
yeah,
poetry or
and,
something.
and you know, this is ridiculous. They have adopted,
That's what I'm saying.
They have appropriated Ghalib, they have appropriated the Jama Mosque, and they have appropriated Muslim culture. Now, because it goes by default, when we don't do it, then they take advantage.
Someone is going to fill in the blanks. Sir.
Yes. So the point is that we fouled up that visit, and we should be making amends with Iran, because Rouhani, with a parliamentary majority, enormous parliamentary majority, comes to Pakistan for the first time. And what happens? He is confronted with this evidence of a spy. I mean, this is very
Inappropriate.
Very inappropriate, and has caused damage to Pakistan-Iran relations. But I think we are neighbors and we have many things in common. So we should be able to overcome this, though it will take some time. But so at the moment we have to face this kind of setback that has come.
Now, so when you see a couple of things, for example, this is what I read in various columns, and I hear from various politicians as well as from various analysts, that the Indians, they always say, you know what, on the eve of the Christmas and on the birthday of Nawaz Sharif Saab and on the wedding of his granddaughter, look at the gesture made by the Indian Premier. He came from Afghanistan to Pakistan to especially attend the ceremony, and then a lot of things were also signed in. Wow, wow, great gesture by the Indians. The soft image of India. Great, sir. When it comes to Saudi Arabia, the current government and the leadership, they always claim that we have personal relationship. I mean, but what I have read, what I have understood so far is that it is not the personal relationship between two countries. Shah Iran was a great friend of Bhutto Saab, but look what happened to both of them. Shah Iran wasn't even buried in Iran. What my point is that it's the interest of the countries over, I mean, it does change after decades or so. Look at the interest of Iran now. They're more inclined towards the Indians rather than Pakistan. Look at the engagement of the Americans with the Indians, more inclined towards the Indian rather than Pakistan. But at one time, Pakistan was the blue-eyed boy. So interests change and the dynamics change. But the personal relationship is a different ballgame. If you're out of power, it doesn't make a difference, sir. Your comment on that?
I completely agree. International relations, and the current perspective that you can use is realism, realpolitik. What my state's interests are profoundly more important to the state than any other personal relation involved with individuals. Individuals don't matter, the state matters. And I think we put too much emphasis, because there's a messiah kind of complex in this country where you think a leader is going to save you from everything. It doesn't work that way. We have got to all work together towards the interests of all of us. And that's more important. And that's how states engage.
It's multi-layered, basically.
Obviously, but the state engages in that respect. The benefits of the state, the interests of the states are profoundly more important than anything else in your engagement in another country. Now, if we engage with another country and we're very happy with each other, but that other country's interests are against us, we're inevitably going to be in opposites and at odds with each other. Right now, as far as India is concerned, the Americans are partnering up with India primarily because it's in their interest. Well, 30 years ago, it was a completely different scenario because the Indians were more inclined towards the Soviet Union at that time. So things change, circumstances change. It's not the personalities that matter as much. Personalities adapt to the situation. And what is happening now is that the American interests in the world are changing also. They're declining. The fact of the matter is everything's moving towards Asia. Asia is rising. Everybody recognizes this is the Asian century.
It's the century of Asia.
And that doesn't mean that it's not. It's just going to be a century. We're talking about maybe hundreds of years worth of development occurring here, whilst the West has had that for the last few hundred years. And everything, the dynamics are changing. And you'll see the policies of the West change as a result to hang on to that. Let's look at China. For 4,500 years, approximately, it was the richest nation on earth. At one point, it had 50% of the GDP of the rest of the world. And for the last couple of centuries, because of colonialism and a lot of decline in its own society, it wasn't there, but it's rising again to take its mantle up. And there's not much that can stop that. But with that comes economic resources, but also economic interests, and then inevitably the protection of those interests, which means military empowerment of the country.
Dr. Kapp, obviously we do understand that there are two major powers in this particular region. One is India and one is China. But when you look at their bilateral trade, they want to take it up to $100 billion. It's hovering around 80, 85, 90 billion at the moment. Whereas we have an FTA signed with China, free trade agreement. And we've been claiming, I don't know for how long, but the total current bilateral trade is not more than $12 billion, sir.
What have we got to offer?
Well, we claim it's around 15.
But what do we have to offer? India is industrializing. It's got more products. It can sell things that we are not industrialized. We're not really an industrialized nation. We're very agriculture in that domain, and we're quite self-sufficient on that. However,
It's all about economic diplomacy these days.
But we don't have that much to offer, and we need to be able to offer more. We need to build that
So we don't
capacity
even have anything offered to offer to our own people, sir.
But the point. So how are you going to make trade with China when you've got nothing to offer to your own people? I mean, you've just answered your own question. India is building up. It's going to be a massive power, probably number 3 in the world within years, as an economic power.
Number
And they've
2.
got- they well, I doubt-
Technically, a lot of people do believe that. Now.
Well, I mean, when
Japanese are
America-
number 3 at the moment.
No, well, we're talking about America still going to maintain a certain amount of dominance. Don't think that the United States is just going to stop and China is going to rise. America is going to keep on moving forward. Why would they stop? And they're going to compete, and they're going to try to, and it's unfortunate, but this is the real world. They're going to try to not allow a competitor to come so far up. And nobody can predict what's going to happen in the future and the way it plays out. And we don't want a new Cold War in the way that the previous one was, where we were on the edge of nuclear catastrophe. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. I think the Americans don't want that, and the Chinese don't either. I think a peaceful rise is very important. But as I was saying, once your economy increases and you've got to protect your resources, inevitably military enterprise increases as well. That may be a point of conflict for the Americans. That's a point of threat. You've got to also understand the Americans see the world through their perspective, through their own lens.
Yes.
And they see the Chinese as if the Chinese are doing something from their own lens rather than looking at the way the Chinese see things. And historically speaking, China has not been an expansive power. It's not largely gone out to colonize different nations throughout the world when it could
The Americans have done that.
Well, Americans not really colonized, but they're influenced in negative ways.
The British did that, but the
British
Americans
and
still, they have a lot of influence all over the world.
But what I'm trying to say is that the Chinese not done that. The Americans, I find sometimes a lot of the intellectuals don't see China from the Chinese lens. And Sun Tzu, one of the greatest strategists in the world, never mind just a Chinese strategist, always said, know yourself and know your enemy, or know your opposition. Know how they think, and then formulate your own ideas. The problem with this is America has consistently not done that, whether it was Iraq, Syria now, with Afghanistan, and they're not doing that with Pakistan either.
That's
not understanding how we think and what we want, and just projecting themselves on us, which is going to be self-destructive for them. And India, I mean, Pakistan and India, for thousands of years, were one and the same. And we separated.
Technically speaking, yes, but the current
we should understand each other better.
different. I mean, they're 2 different countries, rather 3 different countries.
We should understand each other better.
Now, Jal Sahab, if you tell us kindly about this general equation when it comes to India and America and Pakistan and China, are these national alliances, sir? Or these are just sort of alliances for the time being, sir, that it suits Chinese and it suits the Americans for the let's say next 20, 25 years?
Before I talk about it, the previous discussion which was going on, just 2 points.
Please.
One, that it's good to have personal relationships, but then it must be transformed into the state-to-state relation. If you haven't been able to utilize your personal relationship to the benefit of your
Like
own
Pakistan
state,
and Turkey, for instance.
if you haven't been able to do that, then I think your personal relationship, as far as the nation is concerned, it is all zero. It's nothing. It must be transformed, and people have been doing it. Secondly, for having business with India, I think for the time being, we must concentrate on improving of supply for electricity to the industry and the gas situation in our country, because the industry is not growing at all, because we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have these facilities for them. And when you do not have a very wide range of products, you will not be able to enter into any kind of agreement, because then you will be on the receiving, and you'll keep on receiving, or you'll keep on importing things from the other side, and it will be a tilted balance of payment or balance of trade, which will not be in your favor, and you will keep on spending more dollars and getting less in return. So I think first of all we have to improve our own capabilities within the country, and the key is that production of electricity should be improved immediately, and whatever we are doing, it's not really showing much result. Now coming back to your question,
The natural alliances.
Natural alliances. See, our alliance with China, for the time being, it is something which suits China also in a big way, and it suits us also. I've been to China. I didn't see too many Pakistanis going around, except for in Xinjiang province, where they have Guangzhou or something, some place where people go for getting Chinese products. Now, there is a place in China, in their city, Shenzhen or something.
Shenzhen, yeah, that's the industrial coastal area.
They have created a facility which is known as window into the world. If you get into that facility, then you see Eiffel Tower is there, you see Taj Mahal is there. The whole world has a representation, but you don't have anything from Pakistan.
Like a mini Las Vegas. Kind of.
Yes.
Mini Islamabad.
I mean, after all, you also have a Minar-e-Pakistan or something of that sort. You have some high peaks here. Something could have been depicted there.
We also exist.
After all, we exist.
Hello.
After all, they have a replica of this famous.
Taj Mahal?
No, Taj Mahal is there.
Statue of Liberty?
Even Ajanta caves are there. They have everything.
Lots of cavemen here.
You have this
Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro.
Everything is there. I asked them that there is nothing that one can see from Pakistan. What is the problem? That is where the whole thing ultimately boils down to, that you do not have peoples-to-people relation which creates depth into your relationship.
Absolutely.
It is not there.
And this is also a
if
misperception,
it
sir.
is for
The Chinese, they do love us. They would love to have pictures with us. But
No,
they all
it is-
thought I was
it is
Indian
for-
when I went
It
there.
is for the reason that for the time being you have your
They
interest
listen to the
linked up
Indian
with each
music in
other.
the clubs also.
You have your interest linked up with you. Now another situation can develop. For example, I would say that no relationship should be taken for granted, because the national interest can change any time. For example, if you give too much access and too much ingress to the Chinese into your own country, tomorrow you may be upset
Be in
about
problem,
it.
yeah. You
They
can't
may-
put all your eggs in
you
one basket.
can't.
Certain man neutrality is
And
important.
the other thing which I can foresee is nuclear suppliers groups, our entry or let's say Indian entry into the nuclear supply group. We are hoping that Chinese are going to block it. Now there's going to be voting on it. There are 48 countries.
Consensus.
And-
Indians have consensus.
Can somebody,
No voting.
no voting, but consensus that 100% consensus should be there.
Yeah.
So even if one person,
Yeah.
one country disagrees, then you're gone.
That's right.
So we are hoping on that. But we are not really lobbying into the world. We are not contacting all those 48 countries, so that at least we should be able to show more support. Now if it is China only, then you are 100% dependent on Chinese. So they can dictate, they can tell you to do anything that they want. Now we should have been running around in the world to muster support, and even if we could muster support from, let's say, 15 countries, 16 countries, it would still have given some strength to you, that you are not alone.
No, that is where we are wrong. That's what I'm saying. That's
But
what
that
the
is what I'm
basic
trying to
purpose of
bring
the
out.
show was.
That is what I'm trying to bring out, the relationship. When you develop a relationship where the other country knows that you are 100% dependent on them, they will start dictating. And you will start having problems because
no choices.
they will start dumping their substandard equipment and
yes.
products in your
Yes,
country.
yeah.
You will not be able to say no to it.
Our cotton
They
market
will
was
start
up.
giving you costly loans. You will not
It's
be
already
able to
gone.
say no.
Well,
They will violate your rules and regulations. You will not
regurgitate.
be able to say no because there is no competition. So I think we have totally failed in this field. Now, this time perhaps they may block, but let's say year in between, if they start receiving American pressure,
Yeah.
where their own economic interests are jeopardized, and they
And
cannot
the kind of
sustain that
relationship, economic relationship, which Indians and
Very,
the
very
Chinese
important.
will have in the future,
Their
that is
economic
going to be
relationship
unbelievable.
with- Their economic relationship with India and United States is
Excellent.
very important.
Sir,
And if they
that will
bring
take it
about
up to
that pressure-
$500 billion
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
in the next year or so.
There is no guarantee that next year you will have the same support from Chinese on
Yeah,
nuclear
that's
support.
You've also got to understand.
So these
So
are
the
some
Chinese
of
and the
those-
Indians have their own
So
engagement.
you
Sir, if
have
you
to
remember
understand
when
the
Mr. Xi
relationship.
Jinping visited in India, because there was this dharna going on, he was supposed to come here, but he ended up in
Yeah.
India. And I still remember a very famous statement from the Premier. He said that, well, we do have issues, and he was talking about Ladakh, but he also said we have ample wisdom to move on and talk about the economic relationship.
That's it.
Now,
Faisal,
so
I
look
just
at
want
the
to-
approach, look at the
I just
vision.
want to add one more thing.
Sir.
See, we have to review our relationship with the United States also now, after seeing whatever they are doing. Now, they have been saying, they're not giving us any equipment, they are not, even they are blocking the aid, and they may even...
Mr. Cocker is the supporter of the Indians at the moment, sir.
They may
And
they may come on to arm
he
twisting
doesn't
also.
even-
They may also come on to arm twisting. But they are saying that our relationship with Pakistan is very important. We must keep them engaged.
it's only important because they want us to go after the Haqqani network. That is
No,
it.
there are many.
That's not the only thing.
Then what else?
Faisal, let
plenty of other
me
things.
explain. There are 3-4 things. It's a trap. They want certain things to be done through you. Haqqani is one. But not for the reason that they really want to get rid of Haqqanis. Our pseudo intellectuals sitting in this country, they have been yelling that Pakistan is following a dual policy, a duplicity of policy will not help us, and we are this and that, always criticizing your own people. What happens if you get after the Haqqanis and they join hands with the Taliban, Pakistani Taliban?
They'll
That's
come
All
after
of them,
you.
they will
They'll
get
fix
after
then.
you.
Obviously.
This is what we are trying to avoid. And you keep hearing such insane voices pushing your own people to go and head on, start fighting against them. And everybody knows that Americans have done nothing to
But as Professor Kaab said, sir, we have to see it from our own lens, not from their lens.
Americans have done nothing to enhance our capacity. If they have failed to counter the threat from Afghan Taliban, how can you counter this threat from joint threat from Pakistani Taliban and Afghan Taliban? You dread the day when they will join hands. Today, they are not fighting
One of the
against each
center
other, but they have not joined hands.
Mr.
And
Dheram
the
or something,
history- And the
he goes
history of
that
this,
these
the
F-16s are
history
more.
of this war on terror tells us that anybody who goes across from here, if he's our enemy, he becomes friend with the RAW there. And RAW will make sure that they join hands with the
That's what
TTP.
they do, sir.
This is what they will want to do. And
All
we are
these
resisting.
Baloch leaders
I have-
living in
see,
exile.
I have nothing
What do you think,
against
sir? Whom are they supported by?
what India is doing.
Who's looking after them
India is
there?
your enemy. What they are doing, they have to do. America is not sincere, so whatever
So
they are
should we
doing.
accept India as a
I
nuclear
have
power
my
then and give up,
complaint
sir?
against my own government. I have my complaint against my own
Just
people.
my last question and concluding remarks, sir. We always say, at the end of the day, this is the defense minister. You name it and they always, the last hope. You know, after all, we are a nuclear power. After all. Sir, if I'm a nuclear power, sir, and in rest of this entire, you know, all these channels are absolutely useless, my economy is down the drain, look at the agriculture, look at this current document, which is so-called the budget, 4.7% growth in, I mean, in general, which is nothing as compared to the region. And forget about, we'll get to know after 2 years what has happened. But the point is, sir, just being a nuclear power and having comparatively a better system to launch those. Now look at what the Indians have done. Shields and second strike capability through their submarines and all. Obviously, they are also thinking. They're not stupid people,
No,
sir.
they are
They're over a billion people.
anti-ballistic.
They are thinking
Every-
four steps
now
ahead
the
of us.
point-
Exactly.
You see-
so, sir, just being a nuclear power, is
We are
that
just
going to save
reacting.
you? Because this,
You
they
see,
are
the
after that too, the whole
nuclear
world.
Power, nuclear weapons are not really weapons. They are deterrents. They are
Very right.
deterrents. They stop you from being
stop them from.
attacked. And they prevent you from being attacked. Now, you cannot use nuclear weapons like you use tanks and aircraft, because there cannot
But sir,
be
in
any
2016,
conventional war.
in June, you're talking about 4th, 5th generation warfare.
Yeah.
Is that of any use?
And that's right. I mean, the only thing is that the deterrent is still effective, but the others are building up enormous capacities of, as you said, subsurface sea-based nuclear-armed missiles.
Second strike capability.
Which will give them a second strike capability. And it is, I think, they are nuclearizing the Indian Ocean, which is an issue that I raised in Singapore. I asked the Indian defense minister in the huge hall of 2,000 people. I raised a question, why is India nuclearizing the Indian Ocean? And the minister was quite nonplussed, because I identified myself as a Pakistani. And he said that, you know, there is arms build-up in Pakistan as well as India. It's not just the seas, it's the land, this and that. He kind of
Covered it.
But many people told me afterwards that you made a very valid point against India. Now, the point is that we have this nuclear capability, but This does not mean that we, as you said, that we should foul up everything and the economy goes down the drain, and that we
has.
and
No,
we
no,
have
no, not at all.
relations are bad with others, and you know, these things are they need great
And you have internal insecurities as well. Your phone lines are exposed.
Yeah, you need great improvement in all these areas. And as I said to you in the very beginning, that Indians, because of their economic prowess, once you yourself improve your economy, give it 2 years, 3 years, and you start achieving 7–8% growth, you will see a sea change.
Obviously, sir, if everything comes into Dr. Kaab, same point to you, sir.
Nuclear weapons.
Yes, we're a nuclear state. We are untouchables.
It's very good. However, I find that nuclear weapons are essential for our survival for the time being. I think it's necessary. It's a necessity between the current conflict between India and Pakistan. But now that we've got a minimal deterrence, and it's relatively stable, well, there's offshoots here, second strike capability, etc., etc. We've got to also recognize that second strike capability is not just directed towards us as well. So India is doing things vis-a-vis China as well. And any other future threats there may be. As any nation would, to ramp up its own defensive capacity against any future threats as well. However, I find that this is an opportunity as well. Opportunity, what does that mean? Take advantage of a situation where there is no overt war, where we can normalize the situation and we go for it aggressively rather than passively. I think that's more important than anything. We've got to use this opportunity to negate the need of nuclear weapons altogether anyway then. That means we need to build our capacity.
It all depends on the other side also. I mean, we wish many things, but you can't do it in isolation.
That's right.
So naturally you have to, the point is nuclear weapons have ensured stability in this region. Nuclear weapons have ensured peace in this region. The history
will they ensure peace in the future?
They will. If you maintain your deterrence to the level which is required, it will maintain peace, because the history tells us that a nuclear country has never gone against.
But the changing global
dynamics, another nuclear power. Two nuclear powers have not fought a war.
But there's no guarantees in the future.
But guarantees in a way that if you don't have, it will invite threat, it will invite aggression from the other side if you do not have that kind of deterrence. So inviting aggression, I think, can be countered only when you have enough strength with you. The other thing is, we have a very wrong notion about the relationship between defense and economy. Better economy can give us better defense capability, but to say that economy is suffering because you are spending more on defense, you are already, this year you have earmarked $8 billion.
860 billion rupees.
860 billion rupees, but $8 billion. Now $8 billion mean against $51 billion earmarked by Indian is peanuts. And much of it, from 8 billion, much of it is going to be spent on the paid allowances. Very little is going to be spent on.
While the Indians, they'll be purchasing a lot of new equipment.
So in fact, you are just trying to meet your bare essentials by.
You're hardly doing the break-even. I understand, sir.
You cannot reduce further.
All right, sir.
If you want to improve the economy, please have a jihad against corruption in this country.
Excellent.
Today you are spending 1,354 billion rupees just for debt servicing, when you have $375 billion worth of property and worth of bank balances of our people in Switzerland and elsewhere.
Well, that's the problem, sir.
You have $72 billion of loan and you have $375 billion lying outside.
But that's the problem, sir. That's where the
that is where we have to concentrate.
Waqab Saab, Jal Saab, was a pleasure having you.
Jihad against corruption.
And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz from our side.